Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Andrew and so excited to have on our channel today Tiffany Gray, who is also part of the Women in Cybersecurity chapter here in Phoenix. And Tiffany and I go back now roughly just under this year as we've met each other here at some of the local conferences and the cybersecurity summits here in Arizona. And Tiffany, so glad to have you on the channel. I'm going to pass it to you for a quick introduction.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here on the channel today and speaking with you and your wonderful audience. I am the Senior Account Director for CISO Global, which is located here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And again, so grateful to be here and very fortunate to have met you at, several of the conferences around the valley here and looking forward to having our chat.
No, awesome, Tiffany. Well, let's go ahead and get started with our first question we hit everybody with as we get onto the channel, and that is breaking into cyber. So you've built an impressive career leading enterprise sales teams across cybersecurity organizations such as Cisco Global, Revealed, Avertium. I'm probably butchering these names.
Avertium.
Avertium.
Avertium. Yep.
But how do you balance this technical depth required in cybersecurity with the relationship-driven nature of enterprise sales?
Yeah, Andrew, that's a great question. And really, I think balancing the technical depth, of cybersecurity with relationship-driven nature of enterprise sales really starts with translating, complexity into clarity. As you know, cybersecurity is inherently filled with acronyms and frameworks and evolving threats and alphabet soup and all of those things, right? But at the core, the buyers are enterprise buyers, right? At organizations. They're people just trying to solve business problems, right? And manage risk. So for me, I think that credibility and empathy are in equal measure. So I make sure that, I understand enough of the technical landscape to speak the language of like CISOs or IT directors, CFOs confidently. But that does not mean that every salesperson needs to be technical or a sales engineer, because again, if I'm the smartest one in the room, we have a big problem. That's for those folks with propellers on their heads like yourself and all of the other amazing, technical gurus in our industry. But really just getting enough of the technical requirements from a sales perspective to understand maybe how the product or the tool fits into the broader security architecture and how it really mitigates real world risks. And at the same time, at the end of the day, trust is a true differentiator. The cybersecurity industry is just built on fear and uncertainty, right? And clients and partners, who listen and educate and guide through complex decisions,
Yep.
right? Like, so I really try to lead with curiosity and ask questions to really try to uncover what the real problem is, what is keeping them up at night. And then connect the solutions back to priorities in kind of plain business terms. And at the end of the day, my mom always taught me that, God rest her soul, that if people like you, they'll listen to you, but if they trust you, they'll do business with you. And so trust is the true differentiator. And I think when you can bring both of those worlds together, with the technical expertise and then the trust, the credibility, the relationship piece of it, I think that's where long-term partnerships are really built.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Tiffany. And I think Ashley and Paige kind of said this very much the same kind of ideology that you're speaking of, where it's like being able to trust somebody and have them come and look at your environment and have that kind of conversation. And as you mentioned before, like working in sales or procurement and working with a cybersecurity team itself, you don't have to know the ones and zeros, but you have to be able to speak honestly and just truthfully. And for the things you know, talk strong on it. For the things you don't know, just be honest and say, you know what, I can do some follow up on that, or I can get back with you on that. Or as you mentioned, you find your propeller heads and the technical gurus like myself and I, and you bring them into the room.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
And I think having yourselves, and I think Paige and Ashley also said this, like being able to decipher the technical side of what's needed to the CISOs and management that need to know that aren't as technical, having that translation is huge, which I think is a huge part of what you also do, bringing that kind of what you're going to fix as a problem or trust to that organization that's looking for a solution.
Exactly. And again, it all just boils back down to, people being people and they just want to solve the business problem, right? Like, and they you don't want to pretend that you know something that you don't know, right? Like I said, if I'm the smartest one in the room, we have a problem. And just being upfront and honest about it, right? I mean, there's so many different avenues and ways to go about it, but honesty is obviously the best policy for sure.
No, absolutely. And that actually brings us into the next question. I think you mentioned it, reference being the co-president of the WiCyS chapter, so Women in Cybersecurity here in Phoenix. You play a major role in supporting women in cybersecurity. What key strategies have you found most effective in helping women transition or advance within the cybersecurity field?
Yeah, yeah, thank you for that. And I've been the co-president now. I guess I'm going on the third year here in Phoenix. And as you've mentioned, to both Ashley and Paige, and we have some great women that are on our board. But some of the things that I found is really, with being it so heavily involved with the WiCyS, not only the international chapter, but also just locally here is really trying to just create, access and then the belonging. I've seen that many women don't lack the capability. They lack visibility, they lack mentorship, and clear pathways into cybersecurity. And as you know, there's many, many avenues into cybersecurity. Me, myself, like I said, I'm not, hands on keyboards doing the hacking, and that's all the sexy stuff, right? Like, or being an engineer, or being an analyst, or a CISO, or whatever. I'm on the sales side, right? And so there are lots of different avenues that you can go into within cybersecurity, that are wonderful, careers that can be very, very fulfilling for sure. I think that focusing on education and with opportunities, with our WiCyS group, we attend many, many conferences, as as we've met. We do a coffee and chat. I believe it's the second Monday of every month, and we provide educational, and kind of career path driven discussions and presentations, which is always great. And then finally, community and visibility matter. When women see other women leading SOCs and, building out, security programs, or presenting at the conferences, or being on panels, it really normalizes their presence in, a very technical space. And we make it a point to celebrate those publicly, because representation inspires participation within, being women in cyber. So ultimately, empowering women in cyber, creating an ecosystem where women are supported, not only to just enter the field, but they stay, they grow, and then they could lead within the cybersecurity field. And we know we need allies like yourself and other male colleagues, right? To continue to help support and promote and encourage, women in the cyberspace.
No, and I was about to add, like, I since I've gotten to meet and talk with all you amazing women and most of the Phoenix chapter chambers, I would say, as I've grabbed a bunch of you guys to come talk on my channel, being able to help and support and kind of just push out the mission of what WiCyS does is some men don't know that you can be an advocate and a partner of WiCyS without being a woman. You can
Sure, of
you
course.
can help donate, you can help volunteer, you can still go to the meetups and hangouts and still share your stories and collaborate and just be a strong advocate to help. Because at the end of the day, you're still supporting a great cause and what everything's happening with WiCyS. A quick fill in too, Tiffany. If someone wanted to try to join or meet up with the Phoenix WiCyS chapter, what's the best way to reach you guys? Or I know there's a LinkedIn page as well that
Yep.
we'll drop in the comments below, so you get and in the video description. But is there any other good ways to reach out? Like if they go like to the WiCyS International, like or the WiCyS homepage itself, they can search for the Phoenix chapter, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We're an affiliate of the international chapter, and there's many, many affiliates, but Yeah, so absolutely. And then the LinkedIn page is the best way to get in touch with us. It is free to join, and free is always a good price.
Yes.
And then plus you get to, hang out with myself and all the other, wonderful, amazing women in the cybersecurity field. Lots of people stop by our booths and, get some swag.
Because I have the
And
best stickers.
It's the best stickers. It's the best sticker because, one of the stickers is one of my French bulldogs, Ripley Rose. Of course, she's my female Frenchie that represents WiCyS. So I always love to promote that, and that's a big shout out. Thank you to Paige Hansen for getting those stickers done for us as well.
Well, Tiffany, it's amazing what the WiCyS Phoenix chapter is doing, and you touched in on getting training, certifications, programs, and networking as well. And that actually feeds into my next question actually perfectly. So the chicken before the egg question that many folks ask in this industry, no matter whether it's technical, sales, procurement, is certifications, education, experience. When it comes to building a strong foundation in cybersecurity, maybe specifically towards sales, because I know that's where you're sitting into, how would one personally rank those through certifications, education, experience, and how would you rank those and why?
Sure. I think each role plays a very important aspect, obviously. And for me, hands-on experience sits kind of at the top. You kind of learn the best by kind of doing it, right? And threat landscapes change daily. And to me, there's no certification or degree that can really truly prepare you for what it's like to respond to kind of real life, real world incidents, or to be able to architect, a secure environment, under pressure, right? But all of these things are very important because it does build, that problem solving instinct and that skill that's great for cybersecurity professionals. And then I would place certifications, right? But for me, for on the sales side, not so much. But from a certification perspective, for any of those that are coming into cyber, again, I think it provides structure, credibility, and can help professionals prove foundational knowledge. I think it's very important, the Security Plus and the CISSP or cloud certifications or, you know, uh, you know, governance and risk. I mean, all of those things are definitely game changers. And they do show employers that you've made the commitment in learning the language of security. And then, formal education provides broader context. And for me, this is kind of where it sits is understanding the business, understanding the risk,
Yep.
understanding the why behind the technology, right? Like, what is it going to solve for you? And I think that's really where the rubber meets the road.
I think back when I was a cop, there's a term called letter of the law, spirit of the law. The way I see education and like hands-on experience, your education is like the dictionary. It's like, hey, this is the way. This is how it's been. This is how it's documented. But then you
Sure.
have like your letter of the law where it's like, if you're going 46 and a 45, technically you're speeding. You're going a mile over. And that letter of the law of like learning the actual hands-on experience of like, look, like the best way to know how to handle an incident response is to be involved in an incident response. And I think you hit the nail on the head because I think I personally kind of rank the three relatively very much the same way. I also kind of will argue to a lot of folks that you need two of the three to come to the hiring table to find and fit into a role well. You cannot have an education, but have experience and certifications to meet the requirements. And then vice versa, you can switch that around and say, let's say you have the education and the hands-on experience, but you're lacking the certifications. Some businesses can work with you. And that there's a phrase in the Army called exception to policy, where it's like, hey, we know you're missing this certification, but we can work around that. You still have the aptitude and the skills to fill this role perfectly.
Sure, absolutely. And exactly what you said. It's the want to and the curiosity, right? And the drive and to just learn more, right? Like we all learn every single day. We're learning something new, whether it be about cyber, whether it be about a random topic, whatever, right? Like learning is the key and staying curious.
Yeah, it's jumping into cybersecurity, whether it's in sales, procurement, pen testing, GRC, you're going to be on a continuous learning path because even with organizations that sell a certain product, products get upgraded, they integrate AI, they add additional NIST or RMF compliance aspects to it to make it more secure. And being able to talk on those things is huge, which perfectly actually falls into our next question. For given your extensive experience in consulting for SaaS-based sales, how do you ensure your team effectively communicates the value of cybersecurity investments to non-technical executives or board members?
Well, and that's another great question. I mean, again, I think we talked earlier about how, the technical aspects are for the propeller heads, right? And then the business aspects are to mitigate risk. And I think being able to translate risk into business language is key. Security leaders already understand like the technical threats, but the boards, the CFOs, they want to understand the business impact.
Yes.
Like what is going to happen if we get hit, right? Like what is going to happen? What is this going to cost us? How much of an investment, do we need to make, to make sure that we're staying resilient, right? And there's continuity within our security programs. And again, I just really try to stick with, I start with the outcomes, the business outcomes, not acronyms. Because again, alphabet soup in the IT world and especially in the cyber world, sometimes it's hard to understand, right? So again, I think it goes back to risk reduction, regulatory compliance and alignment, operational uptime, and ultimately brand protection are some of the things that I like to discuss with, the C-level executives that I meet with that maybe aren't so much on the technical side, because I have solutions architects and engineers and all of that to tag along with me to talk about any kind of technical requirements. But really, truly understanding the why and the risks is very, very important. And then I would say, kind of a storytelling approach, kind of real world examples. Maybe how a similar organization, avoided a breach or minimized downtime by, doing X, Y, and Z. It's about shifting from kind of a fear-based selling into a value-based selling mindset.
It's I jokingly told this to one of my buddies of like, it's like the aspect of when you're in sales, like, hey, sell me this pen. Like, hey, can you sign your name for me real quick? Well, I need a pen. Well, look what I have here. And I think like you said though, it's taking away the fear aspect. Like if you don't get this, you could get ransomware. Well, it's like, no, like, well, let's just go through let's go through some scenarios. Like, well, here's some real world ones that just happened in the last 6 months. Like, have you guys considered that? Have you guys gone through those kind of tabletops? How are you guys protecting your environment? And I think that's one piece of the pie that my buddy, that when he does that same kind of engagement, it's not the fear tactic. It's just the, hey, well, let's just have an open conversation and let's learn about it. Like, what would your company do? And like, you don't have to answer it out loud is what he'll tell the company, but it's like, just think of it in your head. Like, do you guys have certain processes or that level of protection set in place to ensure that you guys wouldn't have a breach or any type of incident that might occur? And then that's what can do those follow-on conversations that can kind of break down a deeper conversation of a tool or a concept or what his company kind of also provides when it comes into having those meetings with the higher ups that want like the business, the dashboards, the ROIs, compared to your techies. That's like, hey, if we do pull on this new tool or product, how hard is that going to be for my worker bees, the analysts, the engineers? Is that a quick tool to learn? Do they need to go get certified? Is it fast? So stuff like that.
Sure, absolutely. And what results does it drive, right? And from a business impact, perspective and risks and like you talked about the different types of frameworks and how those all correlate back together. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I do try to emphasize, the cross-functional fluency whenever I do go in and I sit down and I talk to the business leaders. And the best kind of really, salespeople can engage with the CISOs, they can engage with the CIOs, and then they can speak with the CFOs in different ways, connecting the security strategies and initiatives to revenue protection, customer confidence, and the overall business strategy that they're trying to achieve.
That's fantastic, Tiffany. So actually leading up to our next question for career longevity. So you've navigated nearly 2 decades of evolution of technology and security. What's been your biggest lesson or shift in mindset that's helped you kind of remain adaptable and continue growing both as a leader with business and in cybersecurity in tandem?
That's a good question, except the words that you said. I've been involved in this for 2 decades, and again, I started when I was 12, I think it was, is what Paige and Ashley and I all discussed. So, no, but I have been doing this for a very, very long time, and that's a great question. I think a big lesson for me, I wasn't always in sales. The beginning of my career, I was on the operations side, and then I transitioned into a sales role. But I would say to stay curious and lead through change, not around it, right? Early in my career, I thought expertise was about the right answers, making sure that I always had the right answers. And over time, I realized that it's more about asking the right questions, especially with all of the new technologies evolving, like you said, and with AI and all of that, and business models emerging. Staying adaptable means being willing to unlearn kind of old assumptions, and embrace new perspectives, and empower teams who know more than I do specifically around the domains and the network monitoring and all of the technical stuff and the propeller head stuff. um it's good to know all of those types of people, right? And success ultimately depends on relationships for me, with customers and partners and teams. And, again, technology evolves, but trust, communication, and collaboration remain consistent. And that is a big differentiator in sales. So that's how I would answer my career longevity,
Oh,
relationship building and learning and evolving, and again, asking questions. And you don't always have to have the answers right now. Like what you said, if you don't know, then just say you don't know and I'll get back with you, and then have really good follow-up.
yeah, it's so crazy sometimes. Like, and I've seen it for being in the field for about 8 to 10 years now. It's like sometimes you walk into a room and like people start dropping acronyms and words and processes, and I'll sit there and then like, and I'll ask like because obviously there's still a pecking order depending on where you're sitting in that call. Like if I'm a tier one or a tier two, and sometimes I'd ask my tier two, I'm like, hey, like, do you know what this meant? He's like, I have no idea. I'm like, can you ask the question or can I ask the question? He's like, let me ask the question. And then a question will get asked that like someone like at the end of the call is like, oh, I'm so glad someone asked that because I didn't know what that meant. Sometimes folks are so scared of seeming that they don't know a topic or they're unsure that they don't want to ask those questions. And I think that's one thing trying to establish and be more aware of is like it's okay to ask questions and not always know everything. Because
Absolutely.
ha-
Absolutely.
having the backup follow-ups and like those strong follow-up conversations of like, hey, I know you asked about this. Here's what I found out, and hopefully this is the solution we were looking for, is so impactful and also just shows several things, right? One, follow through. You told them you're going to solve a problem or come back with a solution. You did. Two, you're able to go do the research and find those people that either know the answer or could do the research yourself to provide that information. And three, as we mentioned before, continuous learning. If you didn't know that process, well, you just did the research and now you do. So if that question ever does reappear, you can be the one to raise your hand. Hey, what they mean by this is blah. So no, I think that's
Yep.
fantastic and an amazing answer, by the way.
Thank you.
Well, we are toward the last two questions of this call. So first off, Tiffany, huge thank you for coming on the channel before I hit you with these last ones. And as a huge thank you, as always, as I offer to everyone on the channel, you'll be getting a link to the awesome Ginger Hacker Swag site to pick up your awesome swag item of choice.
I
As
love that.
as a thank you for coming on, let me steal you away from some of the time, especially during our lunch hour here in Arizona. I feel so bad.
Don't don't. It's fine.
But
Fortunately, today's a beautiful day in November, so
oh my gosh, you're right.
it is amazing here. It's the reason why everybody lives in Arizona, right? Is for times like this, not in times like July or August.
I know. If you can make it through a summer, I'm telling everybody, Arizona's the place to be. But well, awesome. Well, let's ask our fun two questions before kind of signing off is life outside of cyber. So when you're not working, when you're not doing stuff for WiCyS, when you're not talking to business managers about their zero trust and other tools, what are you liking to do for fun?
Wow, what do I like to do for fun? I have an amazing partner. And we have 5 dogs between the 2 of us, and so that takes up a lot of our time, but enjoy, concerts, I enjoy sporting activities, I played basketball in college, and so I'm a big sports fan. I was a big Mercury fan this year, was fortunate enough to go to a number of games. I'm grateful for what this career has brought me and, the lifestyle that it has, kind of come along with that. And I've got to meet a lot of really cool people and do a lot of really cool things, outside of this, but I always try to kind of connect it back, for sure. And I love giving back to the community, right? Like that's another thing that I do is, especially with being a co-president of WiCyS. I enjoy doing, things outside of work with those board members and, getting to know people.
Awesome, Tiffany. And so, second to last question I have for you is for someone that's starting their journey in cybersecurity, maybe switching careers or unsure of where to begin, what's one piece of advice that you wish someone that's aspiring professionals would like to hear that you would have liked to hear when you were breaking in?
I would say that start where you are and stay relentlessly curious. Cybersecurity can be very intimidating from the outside, full of, all kinds of jargon and tools and specialized roles. And again, nobody kind of starts as an expert. Every professional like that I've admired, you begin learning a concept and then onto a skill and then one project at a time. And what matters is building momentum and staying curious enough to just keep learning. And I talked about that earlier about just continually keep learning. And if you're switching careers, focus on those transferable skills, problem solving, communication, risk, analytical thinking. Um, and just as importantly, find a community like WiCyS, right? Or ISSA or local cybersecurity meetups. We often have, quarterly happy hours, which will be on our LinkedIn page. We have one coming up in December, small plug for WiCyS Phoenix. And again, find your community, find, somebody that you really can get along with or that you really, admire in the cybersecurity field and, ask them to be a mentor, ask them, if you guys can have a call once a month or whatever, just to kind of bounce ideas off of one another, or whatever they may be thinking as it, evolves to around, your career. We have a lot of great women in this organization and, in cybersecurity that can offer, expertise and what their journeys looked like and how they navigated through, just certain things. So
No, that's I think very impactful for those trying to make this transition, and for those already in the transition, maybe looking for their next kind of role or next position. So, I forgot to ask this earlier, but we'll probably end with this last question. So, what makes a strong resume, and what are the top 3 things that when you've sat through with your decade or so of experience that have really made a strong candidate stand out?
I think, well, from a sales perspective, impact and results, are kind of top of mind. I look for measurable achievements, even the small ones. Did you reduce, incident response time? Did you improve the detection rates? Or as far as like onboarding goes, like how many net new customers did you get onboarded? What were those outcomes? What were those business drivers? How were you able to mitigate risk? What were you able to solve? What was a business problem that you were able to solve for that customer? Again, going back to continuous learning, cybersecurity evolves every single day. So I value candidates, who have a very growth minded mindset, and can stay curious. And then clarity and communication. Someone who can present themselves, with the experience and expertise, and really how they communicate with people. A well-structured, concise resume, shows that you can translate, complex technical work, and building, into clear business language where people can understand it, that are, again, that may not be so technical, I think is an essential skill. And ultimately, I think that at the end of the day, a strong candidate blends, technical credibility, curiosity, and communication. When you understand the why behind them, you can articulate how work drives value for both security and for the business.
Yeah.
And so those are kind of the top three things that I'm looking for is, kind of impact and results, continuous learning, and, clarity and communication.
No, those are fantastic and amazing things to be looking for. I think for a lot of our candidates that are applying, trying to stand out. And Tiffany, I was so glad to have you on the channel. I know we had to reschedule a few different times, but I was so glad our schedules finally linked. And this was an amazing chance to get to talk to you and get to share your story and kind of some great tips and tricks on how everyone, no matter what kind of path you're trying to look into, whether it's through sales, procurement, DLP, there's a job for everybody within cyber. So everybody, thank you so much for sticking around this long. Please like, subscribe, comment below. What was your favorite part that Tiffany and I talked about today? And as always, we'll catch you on the next episode of Breaking into Cyber.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It's been such a pleasure being here today. And I'm so grateful for you and everything that you do and all the work and the support that you give to women in cyber.
Thank you so
much.
Thanks, Tiffany. And everyone watching, we'll catch you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.